Hi, we are the audience and we are here for Shane's speech.
I'm going to tell you guys a true story about a man. We'll call him Dan. Dan is a good dad. He walks his son to and from the bus stop every day. He puts real effort into cooking him healthy meals. And he just always puts his son's needs ahead of his own whenever possible. Unfortunately, one day, several years ago, Dan suffered a stroke. It was unexpected and he didn't quite know what was happening at first, so he delayed seeking care right away. He also worked in finance in downtown Chicago and just didn't want to leave work if he didn't really have to. By the time he did get to the ER finally, the stroke had gotten much too serious. He lost the use of the entire left side of his body and had issues on the right side as well. And his vision was impaired and he suffered a traumatic brain injury. So just like that, he became disabled overnight. As a single dad whose parents had already passed away, his support system was pretty limited. His sister had long since moved away to Italy, and what friends he had were either unwilling or unable to help in a meaningful way. He could still eat and use the toilet without assistance, but this just meant that he didn't qualify for something like a nursing home. So with no job, no insurance, no support system, and quickly draining savings, Dan and his son ended up in a homeless shelter with no real way out. I tell you that story to help you realize that disability and homelessness could happen to any one of us. Most of us probably go through our day-to-day lives not really thinking about what happens to someone when they become disabled and don't have a family or the resources to take care of them. Where do they live? How can they afford basic necessities? It's comforting to assume that our society has some kind of answer or system in place to help these people, but the reality is that's often not the case. Now let's talk about why that is. So disability benefits on their own are typically insufficient for survival. According to the official Social Security government website, the maximum base payment an individual can get is only $967 per month. And even then, most disabled people don't even have the technical or legal resources to get those benefits. Nursing homes will only take the most extreme cases, and even then, only if the person has the right health insurance to pay for it. So what happens to people in this situation? Often they become homeless. And people with disabilities, they are drastically overrepresented in the homeless population. According to an article by Jack Pracer in Accessibility Digest from Carleton College just this past March, anywhere between 50 and 75% of homeless people live with an intellectual or physical disability. Compare that with only about 25% of the general population. So what about housing programs? The good news is there are some housing programs out there that can help, or at least there were. There has been a push recently to increase the amount of housing available for people with disabilities. However, in the Housing and Urban Development budget for 2026, $0 were offered to programs that assisted people with disabilities, and those programs that did assist people with disabilities were entirely eliminated. One such local housing program is called Permanent Supportive Housing, or PSH. PSH pays the rent and utilities on an apartment for a person in need, minus a small percentage of their income. It also provides them with weekly case management with a social worker that will help them tackle life's challenges or communicate with their landlord if necessary, and just helps keep them stable so they can stay housed. Now, PSH is nice because it provides participants with a really good level of independence. They live in their own apartments, they lead their own lives, and they have a case manager to connect them with any resources like in-home care or a food pantry delivery if they need it. Now, all this information and more is detailed on HUD's website. That's the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So the solution here is simple. The program already exists, it just needs a new source of funding so it can keep existing and hopefully grow in the future. Unfortunately, our current administration has made it clear that that is not how they want to use our tax dollars. The state of Illinois is already overwhelmed with new gaping holes to fill now that this new budget also eliminated Section 8 housing and veterans housing as well. So as a result of all that, private donation is now the most viable source of funding for PSH. Now for you, this is a good thing because it means that there is something you can do to help. So as an example, let's look at Lazarus House. That's a local homeless shelter in St. Charles, and it's the shelter that took in Dan and his son. before they themselves became members of the PSH program. Now, according to the Kane County Continuum of Care website, 16 households, including 24 people, are currently being serviced through PSH, and they all have disabilities and a history of chronic homelessness. To get on PSH, participants have to be put on a wait list, which they are placed on as soon as they enter the homeless system. To even have a chance of getting in beyond that, they need to score high enough on a vulnerability assessment, which assesses them for mental health, chronic homelessness, and any other disability that would put them at risk. Now, this current HUD contract will expire next March, and in order to continue serving these 24 people in Kane County, PSH will need approximately $285,000 per year. Now, it's possible to raise that money from a grassroots level, but only if the people with the resources to donate responsibly do so. So in the end, the lives of these 16 adults and the futures of their 8 kids are in your hands. If you want your community to be there for you when you need it, then you have to be there for it too. So this is more than a choice about what happens to these individuals. This is a choice about the type of society we want to live in. Do we want to be part of a community who takes care of our own neighbors, or do we want to be left out in the cold, each person fighting for themselves? I invite you to choose community and to invest in a safety net, not just for these households, but also for yourself, if God forbid you ever need it. So I urge you to please donate to the Permanent Supportive Housing Program. Thank you.